Good evening, class. In our last lecture, we have studied about photorespiration. What is photorespiration? Let's take a recap. Photorespiration is the process where uh, instead of using carbon dioxide, plant use oxygen, and there will be no net production of glucose and ATP is consumed. Basically, it was a waste of resources for the plant. It happens due to the dual nature of Rubisco enzyme, and today we will discuss about some factors which affect the process of photosynthesis. There are two type of factors which affect the rate of photosynthesis. What is the rate of photosynthesis? And the amount of glucose produced per unit of time when light is available, that is photosynthesis rate. Now two type of factors, they are internal or external factor. Internal means the factor which are directly in contact or in control of plant. First of all is leaf character. Uh, how does it affect the photosynthesis rate? The number of leaf, type of leaf, age of leaf. Suppose a plant have more number of leaf, it will automatically able to produce more starch as compared to a plant which have low numbers of leaves. Size of the leaf, the plant which have greater size of leaf will produce more starch as compared to which have smaller leaves. Third is age. A new plant cannot produce as much as food as an old plant. Orientation, the position of leaf. If the leaf is at the top position, it means it will have the most of the sunlight. If a leaf is at the bottom of the tree, it will receive the least sunlight, and the photosynthesis rate will be lower. Mesophyll and chloroplast. As we know, the photosynthesis mainly take place in the mesophyll layer of leaf. The number of mesophyll cell, more the number of mesophyll cell, more will be the photosynthesis. The higher the capacity of the leaf to produce food. Second one is chloroplast. Chloroplast, the number of chloroplast each cell have will higher capacity if the cell have more and more chloroplast. Internal CO2 concentration. This depends upon the opening and closing of stomata. Genetic trend, whether the plant is C3 or C4. Growth. As you know, C3 plants have more need of CO2 because they do not store on their own. On the other hand, the C4 plants have the storage of CO2 in the form of millet and aspartate. Growth stages of plant. Young plant photosynthesize more actively than the stagnant. You can say the old leaf which are about to leave the plant or fall cannot synthesize as much as a young or adult. Now we will discuss some external factors which affect rate of photosynthesis. Um, they are lights, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, water, temperature, and these are followed by one law, that is limiting factor. Law of limiting factor, which was given by Blackman in 1905. What this law states: if a process is controlled by several factors, its rate limited by the one factor that is closest to minimum value. What do you mean by that? Let's understand this by an example. Even with the full sunlight and CO2, if the temperature is too low, photosynthesis won't be proceed until the temperature rise. It means if a plant uh, goes under the stays under the low temperature, then enzyme will not work, and this inability of working of enzymes will lead to low photosynthesis or no photosynthesis. Then the temperature will be limiting factor for the photosynthesis reaction. Now let's discuss different factors which affect the rate of photosynthesis, you can say, or photosynthesis. First is quality of light. What do you mean by the quality of the light? Quality means the wavelength of the light, whether it is related to the favorable wavelength or not. As you know, the most of the photosynthesis occurs between red and blue spectrum, the most effective for photosynthesis. If plant is provided green light, it is least effective. Then the photosynthesis rate will be down. Intensity. At low intensity, rate of photosynthesis increase linearly with the light. जब CO2 fixation also rises. At high intensity, rate plateau means rate remain same whether light increases or not. Other factor like CO2 and temperature become limiting. The light saturation occurs about 10% of full sunlight. If plants only gets 10% of a full sunlight, it will be able to photosynthesize properly. That means uh, light does not affect that much to the rate of photosynthesis. Beyond saturation, photo inhibition occur, chlorophyll breakdown, photosynthesis decrease. If the too much light can also harm the plant, that is what it want to say. Denaturation, oh, sorry, duration of exposure. Longer the exposure, higher photosynthesis up to an optimum. Continuous very long exposure can stress the plant and cause decline. Let's see a graph to understand this. Here you can see a light intensity and rate of photosynthesis graph. You can see in the figure, as the intensity of light increases, the rate of photosynthesis also increases. On a particular point where it achieves the maximum photosynthesis, regardless of increasing intensity of light, the photosynthesis rate remain same. Now comes carbon dioxide concentration, both internal and external. The atmospheric CO2 level, present concentration 0.03 to 0.4, that means uh, 300 to 400 ppm. Increasing CO2 up to 0.05 increases the fixation. Beyond this can be toxic or damaging. If we let's understand with this with the help of a table and comparison between C3 and C4 plant. The response at low light, no significant effect is seen in both of the plant. Response to high light means they will steadily increase in case of C3 plants, but in C4 plant increase but saturate earlier. That means it will, as compared to C3, the C4 plant will saturate earlier. The saturation point for the C3 plant will be 450 microliter per liter, and for the C4 plant about 360 microliter per liter. Current CO2 means 0.04% is limited for, means it has the ability to increase its rate of photosynthesis if the CO2 amount of CO2 is increased in the atmosphere. But for the C4 plant is it's already near to saturation. In greenhouse crop beneficial from the C3 plant, for C4 plant because they already store CO2, no need for a greenhouse development. Uh, what we have learned from this, only C3 plant are benefited from the rise or enrichment of CO2, not for C4 plant. C4 plant does not respond much to extra CO2 because they already concentrate CO2 efficiently. As you can see, there is C3 plant in the green line. You can see the graph. C3 plants in the green line and C4 plant in the blue line. You can see the saturation point for the C4 plant is below 400, that is nearly 360, and for saturation for C3 plants is about 450. Now come temperature also affect the rate of photosynthesis in multiple methods. Dark reaction is mostly derived by the enzyme rubisco, and if too much of temperature is rise, it will lead to the denaturation of particular proteins which help in the photosynthesis process, because it is a temperature sensitive process. Light reaction less affected by the temperature because it needs more light and more rise in temperature. C3 plant lower the optimum temperature. They cannot survive under high temperature, but for C4 plant they will uh, more efficient at the in hot climate, or they are more adapted towards it. Tropical plant has higher optimum temperature. On the other hand, temperate plants have lower optimum temperatures. How does water affect the rate of photosynthesis? Direct role, the raw material for the photosynthesis. Light reaction, as we know, the term splitting of water, H2O, leads to formation of 4 hydrogen ion, 4 electron plus an oxygen. This CO2 will only be H2O, which is used for ATP synthesis. If there is no water, no ATP synthesis will occur. Indirect role, as we know, the opening and closing of stomata is dependent upon water. Enough water, which means the stomata will open and the exchange of CO2 will take place, or intake of CO2 will take place. Or if the plant have lesser CO2, the stomata will close and it will affect the intake of CO2. Severe stress, wilting, the leaf a less leaf area, lower metabolism, which means if a leaf is fully hydrated, it will have its original shape, and if a leaf gets dehydrated, the surface area of the leaf, which is in direct contact of light, will reduce subsequently, and that means low sunlight. Low sunlight means low rate of photosynthesis. Now our chapter end with this statement. Hope you like it.